Welcome. Ray Guy passed away late last week, and I thought about it. I wasn't going to do a tribute, and I thought I want to really make sure each episode that I have has some sports card insights, not just life insights, but sometimes you get both. Ray Guy, amazing punter and athlete, passed away at the age of 72. First, thanks sponsors. Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins and Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, CompC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. Been doing these tributes, and I think, why am I doing them for people that I haven't met? I never met Ray Guy, but he's approximately my age. He's actually younger than me, which is very scary in one sense. Bruce Sutter also was, that I gave a tribute to a couple weeks ago. It's upsetting, and yet each one of us tries to take care of ourselves. We want to have good quantity of life as well as quality of life. But how does this affect the hobby, or how we should look at sports cards is another story. Let me just dig into, he had an obit, which, like I said, I can't give personal anecdotes as much, but I can relate it back in some ways to the way people collect, as well as who they collect and how they collect. Ray Guy, one of the greatest punters in football history, Pro Football Hall of Famer, absolutely true. He was a first-round NFL draft pick, which was big news back in the day, back in 1973. I remember that. And you think, what are you thinking to draft a punter? A punter gets on the field a handful of times each game, more if it's a bad team, and not as much if it's a good team with a good offense that isn't punting as much. So if the punter's punting 5 times a game, nobody's cheering the punter coming on, except maybe with Ray Guy, they did, because they thought, this guy can flip the field position. Even if we're deep, he can boom one, have it hang up there where there's not much return possibility. You wouldn't think he's the most important guy on the team, and he's not. Clearly, football is a quarterback-centric, and even receivers get a lot more. But if you think about it, if Ray Guy is punting 5 times a game, and each one of his punts is either 5 yards longer or netting 5 yards more than the average punter, because I think he was quite a bit better than the average punter in terms of reducing returns and big high kicks. So he's gaining 5 yards over the average punter each time. That's only 25 yards. But if you think about it, if you're a running back and you're gaining 5 yards a carry, you're considered really good. If you gain 3 yards a carry, you're considered bad. And it's not just because 3 times 3 equals 9, and that's less than 10. And 2 times 5 is 10, which is a first down. There's just these subtle differences in one guy being a little bit better is enough to make somebody an all-pro and somebody get booted out of the league. Ray Guy was one of those guys that was, I'll say, yardage gain, but he was a positive at that position, wins above replacement. The problem is punters are not going to have many wins in their own right because, like I said, they're only punting. And also, I noticed that out of more than 1,000 punts, he had punts blocked 3 times, because you would think, being a punter, this guy was a great athlete, Ray Guy. If you're booming him and nobody's returning him, then you're just kicking. And so you don't even have to make the tackle, although many times other punters are the last line of defense if a return does spring. And also, if you're a really good athlete as he was, and you receive the snap from the long snapper, you've also got to be able to get a kick away. But many punters have been injured at all levels of play when they get an attempted punt blocked, and you're in an awkward way, and somebody can come up under you, or you get one of your legs, and you get hurt really pretty bad. And my point would be that Ray Guy, you said, wait a minute, he had 3 punts blocked. Those punts blocked were, in many cases, are not the punter's fault. If the snap was bad, really bad, where you're like jumping up or it's bouncing to you, then it throw off your timing, or if somebody misses their blocking assignment. So it's out of his control. So he had 3 punts blocked, which sounds not very much to me, but if you're up there and you got these 250-pound guys running toward you trying to block the kick, and certainly when he started, I don't think it was called as tightly about that. So they said he died following a lengthy illness. That's another fear for myself or anybody that's in their 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever. Do you want to die suddenly, or do you want to die with a lengthy illness? I'd like to have some time to say goodbye, and I think, if I got sick, I'd be able to take care of my collection. But you know what? If you have a terminal illness, probably not thinking about organizing and selling your cards. I don't know what his lengthy illness was, but it's sad regardless. Unanimous All-American, all these things. First-round draft pick, played his entire career for the Raiders. 3 Super Bowl victories in the Super Bowl, 8 All-Pros, 7-time Pro Bowler, 1970s All-Decade Team, the 75th and 100th anniversary teams as the punter. You would think if you put all that in a regression analysis and said, here's a guy that has all these accolades, surely his card values would be way up there. Yes, if it was a quarterback. Yes, if it was a running back. Yes, if it was a receiver. Defensive, somebody with a lot of sacks, perhaps, or a lot of interceptions. But a punter, it's not that they don't get respect, but they get respect for what they are, and which is special teams. It's a part-time player. And yet, I don't know if they could change the game, but they can make a difference. And again, highly esteemed. The other thing I noticed is that after he retired, they named the award for the best punter in the NCAA. To have an award named after you when you're still alive is a really big deal. The Postal Service has the rule you're not going to get a stamp if you're alive. So when you die, you can have a stamp. The other thing is when you think of kickers and punters in the NFL, you think, I wonder if they're a good athlete or whether they're just really good at the one thing. And I've long encouraged my friends and family to play multiple sports as I did growing up. And Ray Guy was actually an outstanding pitcher in high school and even in college. And through a no-hitter, was drafted for Major League Baseball 4 different times. But I think he found his calling of being the greatest punter of all time. And went to the Hall of Fame because of it, which is terrific. Anyway, he played defensive back at Southern Miss, where he went to college, and had 8 interceptions one year as a defensive back. He was an all-around great athlete, and you could see why all that put together into making him this amazing punter. He wasn't feared, he was respected. And my sports card insight here, I think when you look at the hierarchy of pricing of football players, and the same goes for baseball, basketball, and hockey, are you going to the game to see him play? When you're coming back from the game, are you talking about the play that player made? That's what drives card prices. Are you on SportsCenter? Can you be on SportsCenter for a booming punt? You certainly can, but the top 10 plays of the day, it might be 8, 9, or 10, but it's typically you're going to see an amazing run or amazing catch or amazing throw. His family was, and his friends were, but you weren't going to the Raiders games to see Ray Guy perform. Much like in baseball, when a pitcher, and these are the pitchers that are very collectible. If you're setting your clock or noting when someone is going to be in town and whether they're going to be in the rotation of a visiting team, or when Nolan Ryan was pitching, especially when he was in his no-hitter season, people were thinking, I want to be there for that. Nobody's doing that for punters. They're not doing it for Aaron Donald, even though watching Aaron Donald on the field, or basketball, somebody that's a defensive stopper. They're going to see Luka if they're a Dallas Mavericks fan. If the Atlanta Hawks are in town, they're going to go see Trae Young, among others. When he's playing Luka, that's always a good time. But the punters and some of these other position players, interior linemen, they're not going to see them, and hence the demand for their cards is not as great. And so that would go for punters, that would go for kickers. And my point to this is that no matter how exceptional they are, relief pitchers would fall in that same trap. You're not typically going to a baseball game hoping to see a reliever. Mariano Rivera was great. Of course, if you're seeing Mariano Rivera and you're not a Yankees fan, you're realizing he's coming in to save, to put away your team. And if you went to a football game and Ray Guy had 10 punts, then probably the Raiders were losing and your team, if you're not a Raiders fan, was winning. The other thing is, it's not just the recognizability. I think Ray Guy was a regular-sized guy, didn't look like this gigantic offensive lineman of a player, looked like a regular guy, just a great athlete. But I don't think people are going to see him perform at his best, which he did. And that's why there's only a few athletes that get you out of your chair, or get you to, that you're watching the highlights, or you're going to the game and you want to collect the memorabilia of that player. Another concept would be touches. How many times does somebody touch the ball? And again, if you're not going to touch the ball, Tyreek Hill doesn't touch the ball that many times, but when he does, it's electric. and he winds up in the end zone a lot. So that would be a little bit of, not the exception to that, but generally the quarterbacks have their, not the point guards, but the focal point of a team's offense in basketball, like Luka. Luka has so much usage and he's got the ball in his hands, and those are the players. That's why the number 2 guy on most teams is not as widely collected. That's why there's a big drop off from Michael Jordan to Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen had plenty of accolades in his own right, but when the time came to win the game, the ball generally was in Michael Jordan's hands. He'd dish off famously to Steve Kerr and Paxson and some of these others, but he was the determinant. Back in the day when Michael Jordan was playing, when the Bulls were in town, I was there probably watching the Bulls more than the Mavs because the Mavs weren't that good in those days. Again, do I appreciate Ray Guy? Do I have his cards? Yes, I have his cards. He's a worthy member of my Wall of Fame, but I shouldn't apologize. He made a career choice, even though, like I said, he was drafted 4 times to be in Major League Baseball as a pitcher, and maybe he could play shortstop too, I don't know, or third base or something. But he made a choice, and the choice, I'm hard-pressed to say it didn't work out well. I'm sad that he's passed away now. He was at the pinnacle of his profession, of what he did. And a sad day, and there'll probably be more of these tributes. But if you're trying to make sense of why quarterbacks are the only ones that get great love in the hobby, and the big scorers in basketball and the home run hitters and the strikeout pitchers, but mainly the home run hitters, that this is it. You go into the game to see him play. And if you are, you're going to want his collectibles. You're going to want his jersey. You're going to want to be connected to these heroes that we admire, certainly at least in the way they play. Thanks, Ray Guy, for a lot of enjoyment. You had a fabulous career. And I'd love to see a perfect world where everybody in the Hall of Fame, it's not a magic ticket to increase card prices, but it's helpful. But to me, more, it's did you go to the game to see him play? Thanks, everybody, and rest in peace, Ray Guy.